once you get saved, you started to kind of, you know, break through all of these habitual sins that you had, like alcohol, drugs. The last one was pornography. And when you started to do that, you actually started to find a unique way that for you worked really well. And then you started to help men walk through those struggles. Kind of walk us through a little bit of that unique framework of yours that you started to see healing in your own life.
Yeah, man. I say with Rebuilt Recovery, we've created, the world's only fully integrated holistic approach to porn addiction recovery. And it's truthfully, I believe, a collection and a byproduct of my life's work and journey. So I started the podcast 2019, like I kind of felt this calling. I'd always wanted to be a podcaster since about 2015, 2016. Like I was deep into the space. I had attended a couple events. I had a few friends that were running shows. The drive and want to have this platform of communication for me was always there. Now there was this story that could start as the framework and the platform for me hosting regular conversations. But as I got about 30, 40 episodes in, and I was fortunate to get connected and begin to interview a lot of experts in different domains, in psychology, in behavioral science, in neuroscience, in the world of faith, paired with a background in business, entrepreneurship, understanding leadership development, understanding a background in training, behavioral science myself as well. So as I'm doing this, I'm looking at my life, I'm looking at the things that had helped me previously in all the different domains that I had succeeded in, right? Because there's something to these, what I call success principles. Like if you can leverage certain behavioral, because we're human beings, we behave. And if we're going to succeed in a way, you have to understand the role that humans' behavior play in producing certain outcomes. Now that's one part of the puzzle. You have to understand what drives a person's want to behave in a certain way. You got to understand the faith component. Like, are you acting in alignment with what God would want you to do there? How do you show up optimally from a nutrition and kind of health output standpoint? So I started to see all these unique principles. Then I look back at, okay, well, how did I actually get free? Like, yes, there was the surrender to my life to Christ, but I still had to show up daily. So what were the things that I was doing? So I looked back at my documented journey. I began to look at the unique similarities in the people that we were interviewing. And then when I started coaching, so guys reached out and asked me for help. Like I didn't go try to create this program. Guys said they wanted it. And I said, sure, I'll be the guy that will test it with you. And that's really what I did. I looked at what worked for me. I looked at what was working in all these different domains. And I came up with kind of a holistic framework that understands a role that our gut health plays in how our brain fires, that understands behavioral science, that understands the role of self-perception and identity, that understands how all these things kind of synergistically work together to produce one human being that's got to live here and operate in the world. So that was kind of the foundation for it. But like I said, I think what makes it unique is when I've looked at people that are successful or people that are helping people out there, nobody's pulling on all, like some will have a few of these components. I believe we're the only one that's truly figured out a way to kind of integrate it all together.
Yeah. And I think that one of those unique aspects is the gut health,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you talk a lot about health and nutrition. And I mean, I've been in this space for years and I've never really heard someone talk about that aspect, which is true. Like I was like, oh, health is important, right? Like if you're mentally sharp, you're emotionally there, you're more resilient, it's easier to fight against temptation. But that's why when you and I first talked, I was like, oh man, we got to talk about this topic, right? So walk us through, how does strengthening gut health change how men feel about themselves and their confidence? And maybe first before that actually is like, why is gut health so important? Let's talk about
Yeah.
that actually first.
No,
Why is gut health so important?
yeah, that's a great question, man. And the more and more I spend time around this topic, the more I believe it may be the most important part of it. Hippocrates said it 2,500 years ago. All disease begins in the gut. Now, he had no modern science technology to tell him that. How did these Greek philosophers know such truth and wisdom? They got it from somewhere, right? Like, and the fact that that quote has stood the test of time for over 2,500 years tells me that there's probably some universal truth in that foundational statement. All disease begins within the gut. Now, I don't believe addiction is a disease. Anybody that holds on to that, I believe, is holding on to a limiting identity. But for a long time, the gut was understood to be the second brain. Uh, and science is now more and more and more pointing to it to be the first brain. So everything that we put into our body goes into our gut first. You ever have a hangover and like you wake up and like maybe you haven't, but those that have had a hangover like knows that one thing that comes with a hangover is a massive pounding headache. Like your brain feels like it's getting pounded on. Now, why is that? Because you didn't drink alcohol into your brain. It went into your gut. Well, everything that your brain produces and fires from a neurotransmitter level starts within your gut. What is a neurotransmitter? A neurotransmitter are the chemicals that fire within our brain, which produce certain emotions: oxytocin, feel good, dopamine, motivation, drive, pursuit, reward, oxytocin, serotonin, feel good, oxytocin, connection. All of that starts in your gut. The healthier your gut is, the healthier your brain's ability to produce those healthy neurotransmitters. Now, what does that mean? If you have poor gut health, your brain produces poor neurotransmitters. Like you eat bad food, you maybe don't feel as good, both physically, but even mentally the next day. You're a little bit slower. Alcohol, little bit slower. Okay, so if we understand that it produces unhealthy outcomes, well, if we could restore, repair, renew the inner lining of our gut, aka our gut microbiome, then both anecdotally and I think what the science is pointing to, your brain now begins to fire on a more operative, cognitively healthier level. So by restoring the gut health, you're actually restoring the connection between the gut brain axis, but also your brain's ability to operate more focused, more clearly. You think, you feel better across the board, man. I mean, I can answer any follow up there, but I think that is like a good, you know, 30,000 foot framework for it.